Good evening and welcome back to the ScamWise channel. We recently looked at how businesses were being misled into contracts with BES utilities through energy broker Energy Search Limited, the owner of which is a Mr. Lee Goulding/Quilter. We mentioned a BBC Radio 5 live broadcast involving another company owned by Mr. Goulding/Quilter, Commercial Energy Ltd, which highlighted mis-selling, once again to BES utilities. We remind viewers that Mr. Pilley, owner of BES, has so far denied any wrongdoing. But what do you make of the similarity between this BBC broadcast from 2012 and our recent 2015 broadcast, which involves Mr. Pilley's company BES and a separate company owned by Mr. Quilter/Goulding? You decide.
Thanks for taking the time to download this BBC Radio 5 Live podcast. To search for other podcasts you might like, click bbc.co.uk/5live, where you'll also find our terms of use.
Hello, my name's Adrian Goldberg. This is the 5 Live Investigates podcast. This week, shocking stuff as we expose allegations of mis-selling of electricity and gas too by a firm called Commercial Energy. We also investigate possible links to the chairman of Fleetwood Town, Andy Pilley, who says he has nothing to do with the running of Commercial Energy. But if so, why do so many staff at the company seem to think he's their boss? You've been annoyed by one of those cold calls offering you a better deal on your gas and electricity? Well, tonight on 5 Live Investigate, we'll be exposing how one firm, which describes itself as the largest energy broker to small companies, has misled customers into signing contracts which offer them a worse deal. And we'll be examining the mystery of who's behind this firm, Commercial Energy. Staff think their boss is Andy Pilley, the owner of Fleetwood Town, newly promoted to the Football League. But Mr. Pilley hotly denies any connection. As always, we want your reaction to what you're hearing. Have you ever been cold called and missold gas or electricity? Or did you end up with a better deal? You can text us on 85058, email goldberg@bbc.co.uk, or on Twitter, we're at BBC5 Live. Our reporter Jenny Chris has been investigating this one. So, Jenny, what exactly has been going on?
Well, they're estimated to be up to 500 independent energy brokers in the UK, and they arrange deals on behalf of business users who, after all, they're often too busy to arrange the deals and search the market for themselves. Commercial Energy are significant players in this market. As you've already said, Adrian, they claim to provide the biggest brokering service to small businesses that there is. OK,
so what's the problem?
Well, if a business moves into a new building and doesn't have a contract for gas or electricity in place, they can end up on a really expensive, what's called an emergency tariff. And that's the same if their existing contract has expired and they haven't done anything to renew it. So Commercial Energy rings businesses in this position and says it can arrange a new deal with savings of up to 40%. The problem is that our evidence shows that some telesales staff at Commercial Energy are bamboozling and lying to win customers. Some of the people who've signed up have ended up on more costly contracts.
Well, let's get a word with Alex Progin, who runs MaxiTrack, a small company in Kent, making model steam and electric trains. Their energy contract was shortly due for renewal with their existing supplier, E.ON, and they were in the process of sorting it out. Then, out of the blue, they got a call from a member of the telesales staff at Commercial Energy. Alex joins us now. Hi, Alex.
Hi there.
So what were Commercial Energy saying to you?
Well, at first, as you do, you think they're actually going to do you a good deal, and you can't help yourself but think when you get a phone call, these people are going to be telling you the truth. But in reality, what they really did was ran rings around us and eventually gave us a contract that was more money than we were actually paying with E.ON.
You had a contract with E.ON. Why didn't you renew that?
Well, we were in the process of renewing it, but you had the phone call out of the blue, weren't really expecting it, caught us on the back foot, and they're slick talkers. They talk you around very quickly, and before long, we took it hook, line and sinker. Thought that we're going to be saving ourselves money rather than going on to this emergency costing.
And who did Commercial Energy sign you up with as an alternative energy supplier to E.ON?
Well, they gave us three options, and the cheapest of the options was BES. Now, I hadn't heard of BES before, And with hindsight, maybe if we'd looked into it a bit further, we might not have got caught out so easily.
But you did sign up for BES Business Energy Solutions, Andy Pilley's company.
Yep, we sure did.
And how do you feel about the way you've been treated?
Well, it's been a bit of a shocker, really. We felt pretty let down by BES, and it seemed that nobody could actually stop this from going through. So the contracts were out of our hands before we had a chance to do anything about it. And not even our own energy company could stop this contract going through. And the bottom line is that you were promised a cheaper rate. You ended up with a more expensive rate. And I know you took your case to the Energy Ombudsman. What did he say? The Ombudsman were really good, actually. We're lucky enough that we smelt a rat pretty early on. So we kept all of our paperwork. We put everything together into a case. We gave it to the Ombudsman, and they did exactly what we hoped they would. They backed our claim and said, no, you're completely correct here. And they ordered that BES should actually repay a £400 cancellation fee that we had paid to get out of the contract. Alex Probyn, thank you. And Jenny, you've been investigating this case, I know. What have E.ON said about it?
Well, E.ON said it had let the MaxiTrack contract go because BES had indicated on the industry data system that there'd been a change of tenancy at the premises. That was actually untrue. There'd been no change of tenancy. MaxiTrack's now back with E.ON.
Very interesting. And that wasn't the only unsatisfactory deal set up by Commercial Energy. In fact, 5 Live investigated heard of so many complaints about the company, we decided to send in an undercover reporter. He spent 2 days at the company being trained in their sales techniques. Greg Stewart is with me. Greg, good evening. What did you find?
Well, Commercial Energy operates out of an industrial unit halfway between Blackpool and Fleetwood in Lancashire. There are more than 100 people working in telesales, both trying to place contracts with new customers and renewing energy contracts with existing customers. Telesales staff are expected to spend at least 90 minutes in discussion with potential customers each day.
90 minutes a day? That doesn't sound very much.
Well, that's what I thought. But when you realise that most people don't want to speak to you, it can be a tall order actually achieving that much talk time. It's a very high-pressure selling environment where people are phoned repeatedly.
OK, so when telesales staff do actually get to a customer who is willing to speak to them, what do they say?
Well, they say they're from Commercial Energy Meter Registration Department. Commercial Energy
Meter Registration Department. That all sounds very official. Surely you don't have to register your gas or electricity meter with anyone?
Absolutely not. There is no requirement in law to register your meter with anybody. This is the kind of thing that's said. I secretly recorded this when I was put next to salespeople as they made sales calls to potential customers.
From the metering department, Commercial Energy, okay? Right, just had the change of tenancy come through for 32 the square. Now, you've just recently taken over the premises there, haven't you? Right, well, all we do is register the meters. We're not here to switch a change or anything like that. We're meter registration, so we're the people who register the meters.
Now, Greg, I can tell it was a very noisy office. It might be very difficult on first hearing to make up what was going on there, but I've had the luxury of listening to that recording on several occasions. The salesperson is saying quite clearly that we are here to register your meter. We are not here to change anything. So they're trying to falsely imply that you need to register your meter, which, as you've said, you don't need to, but they're also denying that they're an energy broker, but they are an energy broker.
Well, that's absolutely right. And the point of this is when they get your meter serial numbers, they can check an industry database which tells them whether you're in contract with an energy supplier or not. Then, if you're not in contract, they'll try and put you on a new contract. They usually, but not always, push you towards a contract with Business Energy Solutions, or BES, which is run by Fleetwood Town's chairman, Andy Pilley. Through his lawyers, Mr. Pilley says there's nothing wrong with a broker wanting any of its suppliers to grow, and he insists BES is a legitimate business with proper checks and balances.
No, that sounds fair enough. I mean, what is wrong with Commercial Energy, the broker, pushing customers towards BES, or BES as they're generally known?
Well, nothing if BES does offer the best deal. Commercial Energy should be scouring the market for the most competitive prices. Our evidence shows that's not happening, and some telesales staff are even making up false comparative prices to push customers in the direction of their preferred suppliers, including BES.
So it's a strong allegation. They are pushing customers towards their preferred suppliers rather than those offering their best deal, which is what they're telling the customers they're trying to do.
Yes, and I secretly recorded one member of the sales team after he'd just been involved in a call with a customer. He told me the comparative prices he'd just quoted to that customer were entirely made up.
Scottish and Southern are probably some of the cheapest in the country.
Yeah.
You're not going to beat them if you genuinely give them rates.
Yeah.
So what you have to do is give them bent rates to sell our product.
All right. So do you just make up the rates then?
No.
Again, very difficult to hear, Greg, but as I've had the luxury of hearing it a few times, you can make it out that he's saying Scottish and Southern are the cheapest in the country, but you're not going to beat them if you genuinely give the rate. So what you have to do is give them bent rates to sell our products. And you asked him, so you make up the rates then? And he said, right, don't get the real rate. These are bent rates. That's a shocking bit of audio. But did you get the impression that maybe was just one rogue trader in the company?
No, because there are managers and senior salespeople known as legends constantly walking around the sales floor and eavesdropping on the calls their staff are making. They must be aware of the pitch that is being made on the company's behalf.
So who are these legends?
They're senior sales staff, and there's roughly one legend for every 6 telesales operators. They're more experienced, and it's down to them to close the deal with the customer. And in training, I was actually told the legends would make up false price comparisons to push the customer towards a certain supplier. This is what one trainer told me. Again, this is an undercover recording.
You're just saying about the rates, how you get the rates for the other companies.
Right, so basically the legends would make that. We have guidelines, so the deemed rate can be anything between 17 pence and 22 pence. So what they'll do is they'll make up a couple of rates and make it a little bit higher, a bit more attractive to go with such and such a supply, so it gets the signable one. But you'll see that as time goes on anyway.
So there you go, more of Greg's undercover recordings talking about these legends, these senior sales advisors, saying that what they do is make up a couple of rates, make it a little bit higher, make it more attractive to go with such and such a supplier so it gets a signable one. That's the evidence that Greg discovered at this company. As always, we want to know what you make of what you're hearing. Have you been cold called and sold a gas or electricity supply that wasn't the best deal on offer? Or perhaps it saved you money? Let us know. Either way, you can text 85058. You can email goldberg@bbc.co.uk, or on Twitter, we're at BBC5Live. Coming up in a moment, we try and understand why some staff at this company, Commercial Energy, think that Andy Pilley, the chairman at newly promoted Fleetwood Town, is their boss when he says he isn't.
On DAB Digital Radio, digital TV, downloads and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
5 Live Investigates with Adrian Goldberg.
Yeah, tonight on 5 Live Investigates, we're looking at energy brokers Commercial Energy, a company which we found has been conning small businesses into signing up energy deals that are more expensive than they could get elsewhere. We also try and understand why some staff at Commercial Energy think that Andy Pilley, the chairman at newly promoted Fleetwood Town, think that he's their boss when he says he isn't. And we'll get your reaction as well. You can email goldberg@bbc.co.uk, text 85058, or on Twitter, we're at BBC5Live. Jenny Chris has been investigating and is alongside me. Jenny, we've heard about complaints against Commercial Energy. Just how commonplace are they?
Well, I've been chatting over the last few weeks to various trade and consumer bodies, and I estimate now that there have been around 60 formal complaints against Commercial Energy over the past year. There's one very recent case when the customer says that her daughter was frightened into saying yes to a verbal contract by someone who told her that she could lose her supply if she didn't sign up. That, for their particular business, would have been absolutely catastrophic. So she said yes, and they're now trying to extricate themselves.
Now, someone else who claims she's been on the end of mis-selling by Commercial Energy is Beverly Davis. She recently opened a shop selling vintage clothing and accessories in Midhurst in West Sussex. She joins me now. Hi, Beverly.
Hi.
What happened to you then?
Well, I'd signed up to British Gas just before I opened the shop, and they were very, very helpful, and I was happy to be with them. And then about a week later, I got a phone call from a woman saying she was ringing from British Gas. and told me they wouldn't be able to supply the electricity because the meter wasn't compatible. And I just assumed she was ringing from British Gas and trusted her. And they said the next best option would be BES. And I said, well, I don't have a choice. And she said, well, no, I'm sorry, but we can't supply. And I signed up to BES.
So you signed up to Business Energy Solutions believing that British Gas were calling you and telling you they could not have you as a customer.
Yeah, because when I was on the phone to her, I said I'd been dealing with this gentleman from British Gas who had been very, very helpful. And she asked me who I'd been dealing with, and I said his name, and she said, well, just hold the line 1 minute, I'll go and speak to him. So she actually put me on hold while I was on the phone to her and came back and said, no, I've just spoken to him, and yes, we can't supply your electricity, and that was it.
Which was the company which was actually talking to you rather than British Gas?
This was Commercial Energy. I found out later when I received my contract through from BES. I rang them up and I said, well, I need this contract annulled because, you know, you lied to me. And he said, well, I'm sorry, but it was Commercial Energy that actually took the contract out with me. You will have to ring them and discuss it with them. It's not our fault. And they kept passing the blame.
So British Energy Solutions, BES, insisted they had a contract with you that you were unable to extricate yourself from. And Commercial Energy, you believe, had misrepresented themselves. They had claimed they were British Gas when they weren't, and had deceived you into signing a contract.
Yes.
Where are you now?
Well, I'm doing the stages of step-by-step complaints. I've written various emails, letters where they said they'd get back to you within 5 days, where I haven't heard anything. And then 3 weeks after my initial complaint, the manager did ring, but there was nothing. He said, you're not happy. I can't just annul a contract when you're not happy. And I said, but you lied to me. And he said, well, I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do. He was very unhelpful. And my next step now is I have to wait 8 weeks and then go to the Ombudsman.
Beverly Davies, thank you. Good luck to you in that appeal.
Thank
Jenny,
you.
You've been speaking to British Gas about this story. What have they told you?
Well, British Gas Business has told us and confirmed to us that its records correspond with Beverly's version of events.
But it's a serious allegation, isn't it, that staff at Commercial Energy were giving the impression that they were calling from one of the energy companies. And Greg, you were undercover reporter on the inside. Did you see any evidence of this kind of thing happening?
Yes, to a certain extent. They would say very quickly they're calling from Commercial Energy, but then they would say, I'm calling about your N-Power or E.ON contract. Most people would never have heard of Commercial Energy, but would have heard of N-Power or E.ON. So it's understandable that customers could become confused and think that they were getting a call directly from their own supplier.
And Jenny, you've been looking at who controls Commercial Energy. What have you found?
Well, it's a bit of a mystery, really, Adrian. Company's house records show that a Mr. Lee Qualter's the director. He also goes by the name of Lee Goulding, and he's in charge of sales at Commercial Energy. But our evidence suggests that there's another person closely linked with Commercial Energy, and that's multimillionaire businessman Andy Pilley. He's also the chairman of Fleetwood Town Football Club, as you've said, recently promoted to the Football League.
Yeah, I think they lost yesterday in the conference for the first time in 29 matches to Cambridge United. Mr. Pilley has made his money, hasn't he, through the supply of gas and electricity?
Yes, he's a director of the energy supply company, Business Energy Solutions, or BES. As we've heard, they're often recommended to customers by the salespeople at Commercial Energy. But he strenuously denies any financial interest with Commercial Energy.
Yeah, it might be confusing to some of our listeners, because Business Energy Solutions, or BES, is the energy supplier involved in the two cases of mis-selling that we've heard about tonight.
Yes, and although Mr. Pilley says he's not in charge at Commercial Energy, the staff there seem to think otherwise. And some describe him as the big boss.
That's very curious. Greg, I wonder if you discovered anything about this relationship when you were inside Commercial Energy.
Well, Mr. Pilley does spend time at the offices of Commercial Energy. One of the trainers who's worked at Commercial Energy for 4 years, she told me, was more revealing about a business relationship between Mr. Pilley, the various energy companies and Fleetwood Town FC. Again, this is an undercover recording as she made a PowerPoint presentation to trainees.
What you see on here, Fleetwood Town is what Andy Pilley is the director here. He owns Commercial Energy. Commercial Energy is linked to Fleetwood Town. Obviously, they're bought BES. He's got shares in there as well, so it's all linked together. Yep. Andy is linked with all of these, and that's where this is the cycle of money. That's it. All goes round. Okay.
So interesting, Greg. That Steph member you spoke to believes there was a clear link between Business Energy Solutions and Commercial Energy, and indeed Fleetwood Town. And interesting, he also arranges staff outings for people working at Commercial Energy, does Mr. Pilley, yeah?
Yes, staff told me about the various incentives and bonuses he offers. This is what one senior member of staff told me when I was secretly recording in the training session.
Andy as well, the big boss Pilley, we have a quarterly due, so it takes us all to Fleetwood and gives you a free bar all afternoon. There's a band on, buffet, everything like that. Probably like once a month he will do like a day where every time you get a deal you go and choose an envelope. Now the envelopes range from £5 to £50 to free breakfast to, do you know what I mean, just like to get you going and incentives. Andy does do things like that, you know, to try and give you a bit of incentive.
Greg, thank you for that. Jenny, what is Mr. Pilley saying about an investigation?
Well, he declined our offer to be interviewed. He's not listed at Companies House as being linked to Commercial Energy. He issued us with a statement through his lawyer. He strongly denies that he or BES have any financial interest in Commercial Energy or any control over its operations. He accuses us of a lack of understanding of the way the energy market operates. And he says that all brokers who deal with the company have to act in accordance with its code of conduct.
Yeah, but what about the fact that staff who we've heard recorded seem to think that Mr. Pilley owned Commercial Energy? Some refer to him, we've heard it, as the big boss.
Well, Mr. Pilley's lawyer says it's not surprising that he's regarded in this way. He says he's an important man in the energy market. And as the director of BES and another energy company, he deals with more than 80 brokers and is responsible, in his lawyer's words, for encouraging best practice. The statement says, and I quote directly, "The fact that he may be referred to as the big boss within Commercial Energy does not mean that he is acknowledged literally as their boss."
And have we heard from the MD of Commercial Energy then, Lee Qualter, or as he's sometimes known, Lee Goulding?
Well, Mr. Qualter's office told us he's on holiday at the moment, but they said Commercial Energy had signed over 20,000 contracts last year and that the number of queries and complaints against them is low.
Yeah, we heard earlier, though, not long ago from Greg, an undercover recording of a member of staff describing the financial structure of Commercial Energy, and it linked, according to that member of staff, directly with Mr. Pilley's other business interests. So what do his lawyers say about that?
Well, he says Greg, our undercover reporter, was speaking with a junior employee who had no real appreciation of how the business worked. And he says the PowerPoint display makes no reference to commercial structure.
If Mr. Pilley isn't linked with Commercial Energy, then why would he arrange bonuses and social functions for the staff, that free bar we heard being talked about?
Well, the statement from Mr. Pilley's lawyer accuses us of trying to distort the true picture. And it says arranging incentives and bonuses is commonplace throughout the energy industry. And the lawyer says, quoting again, "All businesses take contacts, suppliers and customers out for lunches, dinners or drinks. We are sure journalists do likewise. There's nothing wrong in this."
I mean, if Andy Pilley was linked to the running of Commercial Energy, it would all be rather embarrassing for Football League new boys Fleetwood Town, wouldn't it? They've had loans of more than £4 million from his business empire.
Yes, but as we've heard, Andy Pilley is adamant he doesn't run Commercial Energy and isn't responsible for any mis-selling on their part.
OK, well, in any event, over the last 28 minutes, we've heard some pretty strong evidence of mis-selling by a leading energy broker. Isn't that something the regulator should be investigating?
Well, at the moment, it can't. Ofgem, the energy...
Can't?
No, Ofgem, the energy regulator, has no powers over energy brokers at this time. There is an industry body called the Utilities Intermediaries Association, and that has a code of practice that its members must adhere to. But not all brokers are members, and Commercial Energy isn't.
Gosh, let's speak to Andy Hallett of Consumer Focus, which describes itself as the statutory consumer champion with strong legislative powers. Hello, Andy.
Good evening.
It doesn't look like there's much protection for consumers here.
Well, hopefully there will be soon. Ofgem will be getting powers to regulate these intermediaries. As Jenny said, at the moment it's a slightly weird grey area because the OFT wouldn't look into this when we asked them to. They see it as an energy issue, and Ofgem previously saw it as a business-to-business issue, so it fell between the cracks, so to speak.
That's a bit of a joke, if you don't mind me saying, isn't it, that companies are left unprotected in this way and subject to rogue sales?
Well, indeed, and I've been listening to the show for the last half hour, and I'm pretty shocked by some of the things you've picked up on there. I mean, it looks like Commercial Energy has quite a few questions to answer. I can't see how the staff there could have misunderstood Andy Pilley's relationship there. I'm not sure what's going on there. I think it's worthy of further investigation.
Do you think that any rules or regulations are being broken?
Well, there's this thing called the Business Protection from Misleading Marketing Regulations, which are meant to protect businesses from sort of dodgy advertising. So if you're a small business and you get a phone call and they say it's the meter registration company, for example, when it's not, when it's a broker that's trying to get you to sign up, that, in my opinion, would probably break those regulations.
But who is there to protect you? As we've established, the energy regulator won't take it on. Well,
ultimately, it's up to the OFT to enforce the MMRs, and if people feel ultimately they've had the law broken there, they should get a solicitor and get that looked at.
Have you had similar complaints made to you about this company?
Well, we've been looking at brokers for several years now. We want to clean up the whole market, and we've had lots of cases through Consumer Direct, which is the government helpline, looking at lots of different brokers. They ring up and say they're Consumer Energy, Commercial Power, Commercial Energy, all these sort of things. As Jenny said before, they'll say, oh, your meter needs registering, you're breaking the law if you don't register it, all this sort of thing. It's all rubbish. You don't need to register your meter like that. They're commercial brokers, and they want you to sign up to a supplier. There's lots of issues there to be looked at.
Andy Hallett for Consumer Focus. Thank you. We'll be getting your reaction to this shortly as well. Have you been missold an energy contract over the phone, or have you been cold called and ended up with a better deal than you previously had? You can text us on 85058, email goldberg@bbc.co.uk, or on Twitter, we're at BBC5Live. Still to come, the thousands of arson attacks that are never investigated and plagued by potholes. How poor road repairs cost one cyclist his life.
On DAB Digital Radio, digital TV, downloads and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
5 Live Investigates with Adrian Goldberg.
Yes, and on 5 Live Investigates tonight, we'll be getting your reaction to our story about the mis-selling of gas and electricity by a company called Commercial Energy, or at least allegations of same. This text comes in from Jeff Davies, says, are Commercial Energy members of the UIA, which is a trade body? If they are not, they should be, as the UIA is the business standard. Jenny, Chris alongside me, I think we've already established that they are not members of that trade body and therefore not bound by its code of conduct. What else have you got there?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Another one here. My company was missold by Commercial Energy and we're currently in dispute with BES. Our bills have gone from £60 to £80 per month to £400 per month. We stated to the broker that we would not sign up until we had something in writing confirming rates.
Simon Ike has been campaigning for years for Ofgem to have stronger powers to tackle energy mis-selling, but he says the government is to publish plans to give Ofgem new powers to compensate the victims. About time too, says Simon.
There's another one with another experience. They say, I had exactly the same experience with this company, ending up with BES being our supplier through Commercial Energy. The staff were really pushy and called repeatedly until they ended up with our business. They claimed that they were supplying the very best rate.
Jenny, thank you. You can add your thoughts about Commercial Energy, BES, or any kind of allegations of energy mis-selling. Just drop us a text to 85058, email goldberg@bbc.co.uk, or on Twitter, we're at BBC5Live. Now, how bad?
Well, that was a very interesting podcast. Thank you to the BBC for their investigations. So we have now heard of close links between BES Utilities and not one but two companies owned by Mr. Quilter/Goulding. In both cases they related to mis-selling from Mr. Quilter/Goulding's companies to Mr. Pilley's company BES. Although we must remind viewers Mr. Pilley has denied any mis-selling or involvement with Commercial Energy Ltd, and presumably Energy Search Limited. But what do you think? What opinion do you draw from the two investigations you have heard? That is all from me. Until next time, watch out, there is always a scam about. Good night.